So, hi there. Welcome to episode 2 of the Edtech Show with myself, Mark Anderson, host this evening, alongside Bookie Youssef and Ollie Lewis. Really very excited to share across our 3 segments this evening. Got some fantastic reports. I'm really looking forward to sharing about a conversation I had with the CEO from NetSupport, Al Kingsley, talking about all sorts of things related to technology, its developments, responding during the pandemic, leading across multi-academy trusts, all of those things. Really excited to bring that. And next up on the show, we've got a segment from Bookie Youssef. Bookie.
Hi, yes. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to share a focus on literacy and how an app by Pedagogy can help improve reading within schools.
Then we've got Ollie joining, and he's running a segment this evening exploring
challenges and innovations in FE relating to EdTech.
So really excited to get on and share these things this evening. Welcome if you're joining us this evening. Thank you for the message, Alex. I hope you're keeping well. And thank you for your kind comments on the introduction there. We've been working very hard on making a high quality show. Hopefully you'll enjoy it and stick around for the next hour. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on our first segment on the show this evening, which is from Bookie, looking at how EdTech can help improve literacy levels and reading levels within your school. Here's our first report of the evening, and thanks to Bookie for organising all of this.
Language and literacy provide us with building blocks, not just for academic success, but also for fulfilling careers and rewarding lives. The Education Endowment Foundation Science Literature Review found that students' reading capability was the best predictor of later science achievement. We also know that a focus on language and literacy is especially important for pupils with English as an additional language. Pickertail's mission outlines the priority to make children's books accessible in a safe way, accessing interactive books as easy as possible. With the DFE's new reading framework, this provides an ideal opportunity to explore literature development within schools and to see what role Pickertail has within this, as outlined in the following interviews.
But I would say my favorite books was non-fiction. I think I had an interest around science. When I left school, I went into doing sports science. I was kind of obsessed about the human body and how the human body works. So most of my books tend to be non-fiction. And I think I only started really taking an interest in reading when I was kind of in secondary school and kind of looking at what I was going to do after I left school. That's kind of when, I felt like I needed to read. Primary school, speaking to my parents, they really struggled with getting me to read. And I think that was kind of the access to reading different books and kind of not really being engaged in that. So that's why I've kind of looked at using Pickertail as kind of a love of reading to kind of, it's marketed and advertised and it kind of draws you in, rather than just, having a book and flicking through it.
My favorite childhood book was called Toma and Tani. It was a Nigerian book, and this was about 60 years ago. The reason why I love the books, they were a series of Toma and Tani, and the reason why I really love those books is because of the moral. At the end of the book, there's always a lesson to learn. So I love them. I loved books, but unfortunately, we didn't have many books then. So we always listened to stories by our grandparents at night time, because I was born in Nigeria, in Africa, but I love reading books and I still love reading books now. Most of the stories I was told when I was young, when I was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I still remember them. And actually, I use them also at school sometimes.
So my favourite childhood book that I remember a teacher read to me actually was Beaver Towers. That's a children's fantasy novel, and I remember being in year 3, and the teacher every day towards the end of the school day, so about 2:45 until 3:15, she'd read us this story, and it was just such a fantastic novel. And I thought that's the sort of pinnacle moment that I think I really became obsessed with reading. It was such an interesting book. Everyone in the all the children in the class were so engaged in this book, and it just led to my love for reading. Really, I became obsessed with reading from that point on. And the book after that I remember reading was Harry Potter. So I think I was in year 4 when the first book came out, and we were just again, I don't know if it was a school thing, but the teachers always read to us at the end of the school day, and it was such a fantastic book. And I remember looking forward to all the books coming out every single year.
So my favourite childhood book was My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell. And I loved that because of the eccentricity of Gerald Durrell. So I think it was actually then made into a TV series, as I'm sure we're all aware, and how eccentric family were. I have to say, I wasn't too keen on all the kind of descriptive writing about the animals, which was lovely, but I always used to love the pieces where it was about the family and generally just how bonkers they were. They just took themselves off to Corfu, and that the children would always direct the mother and she would go along with it. Absolutely loved it many times. And I was so pleased to go over to Jersey actually and visit Gerald Durrell. He's got a zoo there. So I've always had a keen interest and kind of followed him. So that was my favourite book, and still is actually. I always read books. What I find quite sad now is probably I tend to read much more when I'm on holiday. And every year I always set myself a target of I must just read. But then obviously when you get home and you've got other things to do, and then particularly I've got perhaps educational reading, I find myself drawn into that more. So I always set myself a target that I should actually pick up some more fiction. But it's one of those things where you live like I'm not doing enough of that. I am reading all the time, but it's not generally for enjoyment. Perhaps it's educational papers and the news. So yes, I absolutely loved reading as a child.
The first thing I did actually when I kind of trialed out Picketel before creating all the passwords and the logins for the children was I tried to link it to the national curriculum and what we do in school. So I know in year 5 they've been doing the Greeks, so there's a few books on the Greeks there. I know they do stuff around the planets. So I kind of linked it to the curriculum. I know I spoke to Picketel and they have a publishing side of it where they can kind of link books to what we do at school. So I'm hoping in the future that we can kind of work with Picketel to match it to what we're teaching. And I think with that, because the children's obviously got some prior knowledge in school and they can use Picketel to kind of build on that. So that's kind of the aim that we're going for. I think what is really good, especially, we've got a lot of children with English as additional language in our school. I think it's 60%. And I think it really helps having the narrators on there. I know there's different kind of celebrities who read books to children. So I think that's a really good resource to have. I think, if they've got quizzes at the end, so a bit of comprehension, just to kind of look at the understanding behind it is a really good feature for the teachers. And, it's just a great resource. You don't have to go to a library. You can just have a book straight away, finish that book, and then you can kind of move on to another one. So it's just really time saving, to be honest. And it's free. It's free for schools. So, a lot of our parents, might struggle buying new books for children. It's a free app with lots of books on there. So I think it creates easy access for everyone.
First of all, the fact that children can go on the app and select their home books. For example, there was a time we were looking at instructions, and because at the moment I teach year 1, and I was asking them to read instruction on how to make egg sandwich. They didn't want to read that. They wanted to read instructions on games and things like that. So we did egg sandwich at school, but then they went on and then they started reading other books, on instruction books on the app, which was really good for them. And the fact that they could read what interests them, no limit. So it helps really. Most of them, they go back to read at all times, just to read their home books, what they love. Some of them, they want to read, go back to their nursery rhymes. Sometimes they want to read challenging books. So it has really, really helped them.
So we're only just in the infancy of Pickertail, really. We're actually just about to roll it out. So we haven't had the children are well versed with it as yet. I obviously spotted it and thought this looked fantastic. I liked the quality of the texts, and I thought that it was very kind of child friendly, drew the children in, and there was a real array of texts on there. So I'm really, really excited to kickstart it. We have a very strong reading culture here, well, I'm lucky to say. So I think it's going to be so easy for us to roll it out and the children really take it up, really, because parents are very, very supportive. And I just think because there are so many different genres on there, there's something for everyone.
And they were just so excited to be able to read on their Chromebooks. They were so excited about the fact that I had assigned them a book. So they had to read a text that I had assigned to them. And then they were able, after they had finished it, after they had done the quiz, go and explore their own books as well, work with their partners, and I think it has really promoted that love for reading. The interactiveness of Pickertail is the fact that children are able to open up an assignment. They are able to flick through the pages. They can either have it read to them, so it's audio narration, or they can do silent reading. Then they can save their favorite books as well. When they're reading, it's very visual, so all the text that are available for them is visual as well, alongside all the reading aspect. And they can click on the pictures as well, and then the names and the words of those pictures. They're loving it. They're really excited about it. They're always asking the teachers to assign them more books. They are they do talk about the books that they've read as well, and then the teachers are able to discuss the books, because obviously they're able to access what they've assigned to the children as well. And yes, what we're doing, what our next step is there are obviously Pickertail being a publishing company, they've got their own books at the moment. What they've told us that we can do is actually add authors and titles and series of books onto the app. So children are coming up to us now and saying, oh, can we have this book and this author? So that's what we're moving on to do now.
Before Pickertail, we have homeschool reading records, and checking that. I only check on 6 children per day because I have 30 children. I will read with 6 children and check if they've read at home or if their parents have signed it. Now with Pickertail, I don't do that anymore. It's just a button. I click a button. I will say, why don't you have read? Wow, you spent an hour reading at home. It has helped me to monitor the time children spend on reading, the different types of books they've read, and also the books they've read, who is reading, because not all of them are reading. About 75% of the children they're using Pickertail and they're reading it. So it's really good. It's really good. It used to be about 40%, but now children are reading.
You just create your class and you can click straight on the class, and the data's just there with how many minutes they've been on Pickertail. You can check what books they've been reading. So if you got a child who's not really engaging in a literacy lesson, you can kind of see what books he's been clicking on, or if there's a certain book that more children are kind of focusing on, a type of genre, we can kind of adapt certain lessons to kind of suit that, which helps us a lot.
What I like about Picatel is that actually the staff are able to go on and see what books the children have read. And we have other ways of doing that as well. So within our library, we have a monitoring system. And I think that's much more powerful than actually a reading record book where a parent perhaps hasn't always got the time to sign it. And our parents had said to us, they don't always know what they're writing, what they want, what we want to see in there. But actually the Picatel is a much more direct way to see what children have been reading, because obviously teachers can just look up and see, and they can have that conversation with the children as well.
Of our children have English as an additional language, and a lot of our parents we found have English as an additional language. So one thing that was very great is the fact that, you know, Picatel can be accessed via mobile, Androids, tablets, and even on the PC. So there's lots of way of accessing Picatel, and the audio narration. And I think sometimes a lot of our parents are demotivated because they don't understand the language, or they can't pick up a book with no illustrations and talk about the book with the children. But because of the audio narration, being able to listen to the story, and even talking about the books via the visuals really helps engage the parents with the children.
Some parents were very keen to have a look at the family section as well. But I think what it allows them to do, it's instant, it's instantaneous. And again, it does give a real array. So perhaps if you've just finished reading one book and the child is so desperate to read something else, there's other texts there that they can read. And it allows to share that story, you know, just through another medium as well. And I think it's going to be fantastic when we roll it out. It's going to be to give us that analysis, what we need, because one of the things, obviously, that particularly Ofsted are looking for is how engaged are our parents? How do we know that parents are reading with them? So I think that's a medium by how we're going to be able to evidence that as well. And that was one of the main clinches for me, really, was how we could look at the analysis of that, and it actually being purposeful. So that's why we decided to go with it.
I think it helps see what type of books they're reading. I know they take books from the library, you know, once a week they have the guided reading book, but I think it kind of keeps a log for them. We do have reading records where they write in, but they can just see what they've been doing. They can see how long they've been reading for. They can see the book that they have an interest in. So I think it helps them kind of follow that. And there is 8 different levels on there. So, you know, if they are doing some quiet reading with their child, they can kind of pick the level. And so then that the book that they pick is appropriate for their level. And then you can kind of see them kind of progress through the levels, which is nice to see. So it helps a lot. Because with the library, the children are kind of free to pick whatever book they want in the key stage, and it might be too difficult for them. So I think it gives parents kind of a freedom to kind of pick the level, but then have a wide, broad range of books that they can kind of home in on and get their child to read.
Fantastic segment there, Bookie. Thank you so much for organising that and those interviews. It sounds like a really great way to help sort of raise engagement in reading and to try and foster that level of reading as well, from what I can hear there. Could you share some more with your microphone on, please?
Yes, no, there were so many different features. I mean, obviously from Helen Lowe, talking about the fact that she now has evidence of parent engagement and helping that in terms of improving the reading of their child at home. I think also the workflow and how the administrative aspects are also reduced as well. Helen Emerson talking about the fact that literally within the click of a button, you can see the progress of every single child and also have the conversation. So I just think that where you've got schools that have reading as part of their culture, this will add, that this would extend it and also help, different members of the school community on board as well. So I had nothing but positives shared about it, and it's really interesting. I'm going to explore it myself as well.
Great to learn. Thank you so much, Bookie. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, joining us this evening. As you may know, if you joined us last month, if you didn't, where were you? Please go onto our YouTube channel, bit.ly/Global EdTech, and you can watch back last month's episode. However, every month, in between the various segments, we do have some news. First up on the news this evening is Ollie. So what's your news, Ollie?
Hi, everybody. My news this week is that Global EdTech have the Future of EdTech conference happening next week, November the 4th and 5th. The conference runs from 8:30 till 12:30. Speakers include Caroline Wright from BISA, who's opening the event and will provide reflections on the direction of EdTech as we emerge, or at least we try to emerge from the pandemic. We're delighted to feature a range of international speakers, including Kobe Reynolds from Australia, who will provide practical tips for teachers on how AI and machine learning can be taught in the classroom. Lynn Thomas from Canada will deliver a session on learner variability and how EdTech can be used to help deliver the needs of all learners. And of course, chaired by the ICT evangelist, Mark Anderson himself, he'll also be joined whilst hosting the event by Al Kingsley as part of a Q&A looking at how EdTech has evolved and how teachers can make the best use of the solutions available to them and their impact on teaching and learning in a positive way. So it's an event that is set to have something for everybody at all levels in schools and across the education sector. It's got a truly global outreach, so please do tune in. To find out more about the event, you can either go to @global_edtech on Twitter. You could also go to Global EdTech's website, which you can find global-edtech.com. And it seems reasonable at this moment to give a shout out to the sponsors for the event, which you can see here, classroom.cloud. Thanks also to NetSupport and to BISA. Mark, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm really excited about the event. As I say, it's taking place next week on the Thursday and Friday, 4th and 5th, 8:30 till 12:30. It's completely free. If you wanted to find out more, you can obviously, as Ollie said, check out the socials. But if you want to sign up, and we've got, I think, 700 people signed up to join us already. So it's already going to be quite a busy event. Yeah, head over to the Global EdTech LinkedIn page. Everything's going to be happening through LinkedIn on the day. So please do get yourself over there. As Ollie mentioned, we've got speakers from Australia, we've got speakers from Hong Kong, India, all over the world, really representing and flying the global flag for EdTech. Sharing insights and other bits from around the world. So that's happening next week. Please do join us. Next up, Ollie, our next segment is...
it's Ronan's report on the challenges and innovations in FE across the UK. He speaks to a really diverse range of educators in that space that are really pushing the boundaries with EdTech to drive teaching and learning, as well as many other aspects across schools. So without further ado, Mark, let's go to Ronan's report.
Hi, and welcome to my segment of the Edtech Show. And this month, what I will be focusing on is further education, and I'll be joined by various leading lights from the FE sector as they give their perspectives on what's happening in terms of innovation, in terms of the challenges that the sector is facing, and also their perspectives on what's current and topical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all faced several challenges, haven't we, over the past 18 months. I'd say that the thing that we're finding at the moment is the disruption to learning has then had this knock-on effect that's meant that learners probably have got out of the discipline of being in a learning environment, and kind of they've lost a lot of confidence in their communication with each other, and that's coming out in other ways and different behaviours and things. So I mean, that is a challenge to get learners back into that mindset. and build their confidence up again. I'd say also, you know, that they've got this fatigue now with online learning, when really it's not a great reflection of what online learning is all about. But what they've had, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic, was very much that kind of, we were all in a bit of a knee-jerk response phase. And it didn't really demonstrate the best bits of online learning that learners can be exposed to.
So the challenges that face the sector, I think the big challenge is embracing collaboration, getting over our tribal instincts. At the granular level, we do it in our staff rooms, don't we? We're quite sort of us and them, as it were. But then you get to the institutional level, and then you get to collaborations and mergers of colleges, and it makes the problem even more complicated, potentially, if you look at it as a problem. But really, these are great opportunities for collaboration, for joint projects, for sharing resources, for innovating in the way we restructure curriculum. So I really feel that embracing these opportunities and using our resource in a more efficient way is really crucial moving forward. I really think that we've learned through the pandemic that we can pool our resources and redistribute them in a really efficient way, embracing flipped approaches, getting our students to go away and research, explore, discover, and scaffold the learning and bookend it with face-to-face, as it were, or ideally, the in-person, the real, the live, the dynamic, living, breathing, vocational lessons, and have the flipped or blended approach be the cartilage or the connector, as it were, between the lessons. That's when we see things really thrive and sing. Another big challenge that springs to mind, though, when you say that, is digital well-being. So what I mean by that is screen time, addiction, using technology with intention and purpose to improve our lives rather than haunt our lives and consume our precious time. I think that is the biggest challenge facing education moving forward, and I know for the rest of my career that is going to be the big thing in terms of helping our students to use technology rather than have technology use them.
The challenge still exists, that we made huge progress in moving the way we use digital in FE during the pandemic, and we need to maintain that progress. And I think there is a potential risk that as we return to site and with people back on site, that digital loses its importance or its perceived importance. So I think from a post-pandemic or as we emerge from the pandemic, there are still lots of need to ensure we continue to embed those digital skills.
Some of the challenges I think the sector is facing in FE is, the funding and government investment decreases are a big issue. Learners' ever increasing complex needs and difficulties is a big issue. Access to technology and devices, shortage of professionals, FE and colleges, I believe, are continually getting overlooked. And the fantastic work that they do nationally not getting recognised is a big bugbear. I'm not sure if it's a challenge, but I think it's important to mention that teachers, lecturers don't get de-skilled. I think it's an important, skilled, inspirational, vital job, and the lecturer and teacher should always have a place and not be replaced either with technology or by a recently qualified assessor.
So the challenges that the FE sector face at the moment, particularly, is a massive challenge with funding. That's the main thing that we're struggling with, I think. The government has said a lot about we need to upskill people, that we need to be bringing in more adults into FE, things like that, but the funding doesn't seem to be coming alongside it. So whilst the future does look bright for the FE sector, it's just difficult to get there at the moment with all the different things that are being announced, but no additional income streams coming along with it. It can also be quite challenging. Obviously, at FE, a lot of the people who are teaching are industry experts, which is absolutely amazing. But when you come at it from a digital side of things, they're not ready for working with the sort of the technical side of teaching. So it can cause a few hiccups when people first start, as they have to wrap their heads around using virtual learning environments, about things being slightly different from how it was when they were at school, and things that they haven't actually used in industry before. So making sure that the training is there and spot on right from day one for all of our FE educators is it's a fun challenge, and it's one that I absolutely relish doing in my job, but it is a challenge nonetheless.
I'd also say that there's the unfair tag that students, this kind of generation have got, and that's of digital natives. And I don't necessarily agree with that term, because automatically people assume that just because students have grown up with surrounded by technology, that they know everything about it. And actually they don't know everything about it. They're fantastic on social media, but actually those really essential digital skills that we need to develop in them, we kind of sometimes wrongly assume that they've already got. So that's something that needs addressing, and is a massive opportunity to get that right. I think there's been massive amounts of innovation in the FE sector. I think we should be really proud of the innovation that's taken place, and it's been more kind of responsive, to be honest with you. We've had to really kind of react quickly and adapt to the challenges that we faced throughout COVID. So a lot of vocational practitioners in particular have had to change the way that they go about things when we switched to remote learning.
Yeah, so I think the FE sector is massively innovative, particularly looking at it from the EdTech side of things. To blow my team's own trumpets, because obviously you have to do that, the Power Platform things that have come out of Microsoft, bits and pieces are starting to be done across the education sector with them now. But at Blackpool and Fylde College, they've really embraced using Power BI, using Power Automate, and even using Power Apps to develop bespoke automation, to develop bespoke dashboards of information and apps to help guide students around the college, including a custom-built booking system for booking out rooms and computers during COVID. So lots of innovation there on getting things actually working, getting them the right way first time round if we can, and really just pushing it out there, pushing the limits of what the tech that we've already got available to us can do.
Technology use in FE, I believe, has snowballed drastically over the last 2 years, especially due to the pandemic. Colleges utilising their chosen platform. In the case of us at Cheshire College South and West, we use Microsoft, and so we've seen increased innovation and use of Microsoft Teams, Microsoft OneNote with its voice recorded feedback and dictate features to reduce workload, increase a better work-life balance, and improve mental health for both colleagues and staff alike.
Ada was our first attempt at redefining these services. As a student or as a member of staff, when you walk into the campus and you've got a query about campus services or college life, you typically have to go to the college intranet or a website and search for the information there, or you do that in person by telephoning or emailing or seeing someone face to face to get a particular query addressed. With the advent of Ada, we're able to bypass a lot of the friction that's associated with finding information on a campus like Bolton College. So what students and members of staff are able to do is pose Ada a question, and Ada is able to respond in kind with text and multimedia back on the screen to that user. So in the first instance, Ada acts as a chatbot Ed is able to answer day-to-day questions about campus life, about all the campus services. Ada can also importantly respond contextually to your inquiries as well. So for instance, if Ada is able to, if you ask Ada for your timetable, Ada is able to respond back with a contextualized piece of information regarding your timetable.
The other aspect of innovation I think is important and is the one that I think is going to continue to grow apace is the use of virtual and immersive technology. Certainly within the college that I work at, we've got a number of immersive spaces, and they've really started to enable learners to experience and navigate around objects that they would never have been able to do, and get views of things and explore things in a way that would have been completely unimaginable not that long ago.
We've seen some wonderful things, particularly in vocational subjects, whether it be travel and tourism students using tools such as Google Earth VR and maps to plot routes, whether it be public services students using an operations room full of technology such as chat tools, live spreadsheets, updated information in relation to simulated events, whether it be a terrorist attack or whether it be a natural disaster, and seeing our students use tech to problem solve and ideate against the clock to actually solve the issue. Or whether it be in our health related lessons, where we've had students in childcare and health and social care and access to health and sciences using tools such as vlogs and podcasts to practice their manner, as it were, the way they come across on camera. And we've noticed increasingly in our service industries courses, more and more of our students using tools like Flipgrid or just a camera on their device to reflect on the way they come across, their mannerisms, their gestures, and using tech as the tool it is to help them gather undeniable evidence to show that they know in a way that they are familiar with.
I think when talking about further education, you can't but not mention innovation. I think the sector is constantly changing and evolving, and that's required us to innovate. I think the pandemic demonstrated that innovation with the ease at which we were able to move lessons online. And I think beyond that, and even prior to the pandemic, the way that we were using technology to benefit the learning experience had changed. For me, I think the way that we work with employers had changed, and the way that they were involved in both the curriculum design and delivery was something that historically we would have never even attempted to do.
Now we see Ada potentially as a composite of different software agents or AI agents that reside on the campus, and we see these agents as working in cooperation with one another. So for instance, if there was an agent that supports students progress onto university, the agent could work alongside the assessment agent and determine that a student is progressing well, they're on a level 3 course, and they're in a position now to apply for university.
So your microphone's just off.
Yeah, thank you. I saw Bucky signaling to me. That's such a fantastic report, that, and it's great to see and hear concrete examples from such a broad range of different educators in that space. It would be remiss, actually, if we didn't bring in a few comments. Thank you, James, not only for contributing to that report, but also for tuning in and watching. I do hope you're well. And I wholeheartedly agree with you there that it's great to hear such a range of experiences and your own experience, James, in that education space. Thanks also to Tim. Absolutely agree that embracing collaboration is the best way to proper innovation and developments that can positively impact all learners. So it really shone through and resonated those points from the contributions from everybody in Ronan's report there, and a little shout out. Here's a drawing on the hive mind that is the Edtech Show and our professional learning network. Stephen is looking to build an immersive space moving forward. So he'd be interested to know what software people are using, or if people are using bespoke purpose-built kits. Please do get in touch with Stephen, either through, it looks like he's joined us via LinkedIn, so please join and comment on the show. We can connect you either through Mark, Bookie, or myself, so that you can share your knowledge and experience with Stephen. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Just a shout out and thanks as well to Stephen. Stephen was one of the contributors on that segment as well, so thank you for your time on that as well, Stephen, and lovely like James for joining, and thank you for joining us live on the show this evening as well. Thank you. Sorry there, Ollie, I missed you for a second then.
I think you're back, Mr.
Oh, did I drop off for a second then? Sorry, my mistake.
You just dropped off for a little bit. Yeah, you popped back in, but yeah.
Very strange.
Please give him a further shout out.
Apologies. Yeah, I was saying thank you to Stephen for not only joining us this evening, but for his insights on the segment as well. Really good of you to join us and share, as you did with Ronan on that segment, Stephen. But great for you to join us. And like Ollie says, very happy to connect you with a few people. The hive mind is definitely one to help. Across the board, isn't it? Education is definitely a force for good, and there's far more that sort of unites us than divides us. As Scott was saying as well in that segment too. I want to share some news with you now. I was really fortunate to get to go to the BESA annual general meeting. BESA, of course, being the British Educational Suppliers Association. Lots of companies representing there, not just edtechs, but other providers into education as well. But it was a great opportunity to get to meet and talk and network with the likes of Paddy McGrath and Text Help, companies like Arc Maths, so many. But a shout out to Caroline Wright and the team at BESA for putting together a great event last Thursday in London. And with that in mind, I wanted to do a shout out, if you haven't heard about, if you're looking for new EdTech for your school, but worried about what EdTech to choose and those sort of things, BESA have two initiatives which can help you in your school or your college. One of those is called Lend Ed, and if you go to lended.org.uk, you can find EdTech you can try out for free through that. But a good starting place to learn about what EdTech's out there and available are their Learn Ed tours, which take place all around the UK. You can find out more about Learn Ed by going to learned.org.uk and look out for a tour happening near you, where you can go along and not only hear about the latest EdTech that you can try out in your school, but another great feature which really resonates highly with me with the Learn Ed events is the ability to hear from people who've been there and done really well at it. So they've got lots of people in leadership and on the ground roles in schools and colleges, talking about how they've embedded technology across their schools, the strategies they've sort of employed, and the things that have worked and not worked, because that's all just as important as showing the things that do work, I think, at these Learn Ed events. And they're completely free to attend. So please do have a look at learned.org.uk, and I'm sure they'll be very happy to welcome you to those sessions. I say they're touring around the UK, so there's bound to be one that's happening near you. What's up next, Bookie?
Right, you are up next, Mark, and your segment where you interview Al Kingsley, who has worked in education, the EdTech sector, should I say, for over 30 years. He's also going to be sharing part of what his company's solution is as part of response to the pandemic, and actually creating classroom.cloud. So without further ado, let's hand over straight over to you, Mark, and your interview with Al.
Thank you, Bookie. So, Al, look, great to have a chance to catch up with you. As a starter for 10, can you share a bit about what NetSupport do?
I absolutely can. Always good to talk with you, Mark. Yeah, hopefully people have come across the NetSupport name. We've been around over 30 years, so we're starting to get an idea of how to do things. Fundamentally, our main focus is as an EdTech vendor. And within that, we kind of look at the layers of the school IT requirements when it comes to educational technology. So many people will have known us for many years for our classroom instructional technology. NetSupport School is our flagship classroom management product, and that's all about connecting teacher and student and that engagement within the classroom, as well as the testing and assessing. And probably the thing people remember most when we think sort of classroom assessment is that kind of lock, stop and block, the shepherding of a student's activity. Alongside that, we make sure we have tools like NetSupport DNA that are all about managing that broader IT infrastructure so that fundamentally all the kit's available and operational when it's needed. And alongside that, keeping children safe is a big part of what we do as educational technology. So we also provide a wrapper in terms of that keyword monitoring and safeguarding tools to ensure we keep all of our learners as safe as possible. But we've also grown over time. So as part of our portfolio, we have a notification solution, not surprisingly, NetSupport Notify, that very much is there to help support that emergency messaging approach. But on bigger infrastructures and sites, it also helps just with communication to staff of key messaging, whether it's technical issues or, fingers crossed not, but security related issues. And then we also have our move to the cloud, like many vendors, and I'm a firm believer, Mark, as you know, which is all about giving people choice. So we have desktop apps that don't require to use that school bandwidth out, and we also have cloud solutions that really break down and remove that need for the physical space to be defined, and very much a topic that you and I have spent many a time talking about, like many others, about that concept of blended learning and offering that flexibility. So, as a vendor, we kind of very much have developed solutions really wrapping around all the key areas where there's demand and support needed in schools.
Well, there's a lot there, isn't there? Lots of things. You've got a firm grounding in education with a number of different roles. You lead multi-academy trusts. You even run sessions with students within the schools, within the trusts as well. How have your schools adapted over the last 18 months? And from that, has your approach to EdTech purchasing within that sort of hat, as it were, changed?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Mark. I think one thing that I'm really mindful of is, sometimes people's perception is that the narrative or the discussion around educational technology and something that we're very passionate about, digital strategy, is something that has been the same kind of concept and questions over time. But actually, the last 18 months, we've had lots of pressures and challenges, but it's also been a real opportunity to learn lots. And we've moved from making decisions about theoretical benefits of impact to actually evidence lessons learned. So I think what we've done as a trust is kind of work backwards, if you like many schools. And I don't think this journey is in any way unique. We started off across schools in both the MATs that I lead, very much focusing on that digital equity, making sure that we had an opportunity for all our learners to engage and utilise technology. And then, like all these things, it comes down to, well, what's the core foundations? What's the technology that will actually enable? And the enable kind of fell into the pots of how do we deliver effective online teaching and learning in some shape or form? How do we keep our learners safe? And probably one that actually counted as much as anything, I think, in the bigger picture of our children and their welfare, was that fostering a better communication, maintaining the links, particularly for our SEN children and that continuity, but also brokering and supporting families, because there was an extra demand and expectation on them, and we all know they're key stakeholders if we're going to get that success of our children. So we kind of learned to stitch those together, and they fed into digital strategy, something that I would not claim in my trust is ever a finished article. We're on a journey and it's constantly adapting, and that really feeds into that idea that actually the lessons of the last 18 months are key to re-evaluating and reshaping what works and what the opportunities from the lessons learned are moving forward. So those have kind of been key building blocks, the pillars around what we've actually done within the trust. I think from purchasing, and that's a really, really salient point to raise at this point in the narrative, one of the nice things from the EdTech community, very much was, we have a pandemic, we have a challenge in schools. How do all the vendors as stakeholders help support schools? And so naturally, lots of solutions were offered free and available for schools to use to help mitigate challenges. But actually there comes a problem for a school, which is the more choices you get, the harder it is to actually identify which is the best tool for you. How do I choose? And in a positive sense, we've got a really thriving EdTech community, not just in the UK, but internationally. So I think there's a collective mindset now, which is when we think about educational technology, there's just as important that narrative about how do we effectively select and choose solutions. So if we're thinking about solutions in the classroom that are delivering curriculum content and engagement, we rightly are looking and saying, well, where is the evidence, the pedagogy aligned evidence behind that solution to actually give us the reassurance that it will actually deliver on the claims on the brochure and the website. And then, of course, there's other ways to gain that confidence and evidence. So one is about peer assessment, a review of other schools in our district or in our region, and actually looking at the solutions that work for them and have worked well. Collectively, making sure that solutions that you invest in are available to try for free so that you can make sure you make the right decisions. Thinking back to digital strategy and all the stakeholders involved, making sure we're not selecting solutions in a silo, but we're looking what other similar departments within our school, our MAT or our broader district might be using, so that we can make sure we can build on other people's skills and experience. And then the final one that kind of wraps around all of that, a conversation that I absolutely am teaching you to suck eggs on, because this is very much your area, is about the role that CPD takes.
Apologies there. There appears to be a bit of a lag there on the video. So what I'm going to do, just to make it all work and sing nicely, because I would hate for my interview to not come across as it should do, I'm just going to remove that a second. And apologies to Al for kicking him out of the studio. Bye, Al. But welcome back any moment. I don't want it to come across. And you know, if you're fans of Blue Peter as well, they say never work with animals and small children. Never try and work with live streaming video. Perhaps that's something for us to learn from. But let's just bring that back in, and I'll bring us back to where the video was. And hopefully that will kick in and be all good for us. There we go.
The role that CPD takes. And often that word can be said in quite a short sentence and dismissed, but really it's all about how do we build teacher confidence. The confidence to use tools will absolutely lead into the likelihood and success of a solution being embedded. But what we also want to do is spark and encourage innovation. And for innovation, we actually want teachers to go that next step up from confidence to actually have mastery of the solutions. So I think there's a number of strands, but those will be the key ones that we've kind of learned over the last 18 months.
Thanks, Al, and really detailed and comprehensive and sort of a lovely wrapper of care, particularly around the ideas about structure and strategy and CPD and all of that. Taking what you've learned from that scenario with your multi-academy trust CEO hat on and the rest of it, how has that sort of informed what you're doing as a business? What have NetSupport learned from the pandemic, and there's still a bit slightly strange and unusual from what you've experienced before, engagement with schools. So what are the plans for the future? What have you learned, Al?
Well, I think the simple answer is that the most important thing is to be receptive to learning, be receptive to reflect on the solutions you've got and recognise when what was a great solution may not 100% meet needs now, because the requirements are constantly moving. And as a business, we are very heavily invested within the education space. You know, Mark, because you've been involved in many of the people who'll be watching the Edtech Show will know, you know, we get involved in supporting schools and working with schools, events, sharing best practice, resources and so on. And part of that, of course, is a two-way street, because the closer you are to the coalface, the more invested you are in schools, the more you recognise and hear about the challenges and how you need to adapt. And the world has changed in terms of the EdTech landscape. It might take some time for those lessons to be learned and for us to move forward. But the key thing that we recognised was about giving people choice. The new online blended world, we wanted to say, well, actually schools need to, ideally, thinking back to our CPD narrative, be able to use one solution no matter where the setting. It reduces the level of skills and training required, but also provides that flexibility and continuity for learners. So we went away and said, actually, whilst we've got nearly 30 years experience with NetSupport School in terms of instructional technology, we can take the best of that, the things that we've learned and adapted over the years, and we can deliver that as a cloud-based platform. That was the birth of Classroom Cloud, our new solution that delivers that online classroom learning experience for instructional technology. And then we also said, you know, with that accessibility to digital and technology also comes risk. So we can take the experience and lessons learned from NetSupport DNA and bring that core safeguarding, monitoring component, and integrate that within Classroom Cloud, so that we're giving children access to digital resources, but at the same time putting the safety net wrapper around it. And we know that much of the narrative when it comes to safeguarding is about empowering learners. So we also wanted to build in things like the resources for young people to seek support and advice, or report concerns themselves, very much aligned with current narrative about the risks online. So that's really evolved. And like all these things, I think you have to be big enough as a vendor to say, don't have all the answers. I need to actually co-produce with the people who are going to be using it. I have to be willing to take on board their differing ideas from different scenarios and different international markets and pull the common strands from that. And what you end up with, hopefully, is a solution that not only meets everybody's needs, but isn't overcomplicated. You retain that core requirement, which is if it's easy to set up and it's easy to use and it's easy for learners to engage in, you've got a much better chance of it being embedded in schools, getting the impact they were hoping for from it.
You mentioned right through there some really important words that massively resonate with me, as you well know, Alf. The P word of pedagogy. You've talked about relationships, working with, and co-creating the products alongside the teachers and schools that you work with. How do you work with the edtech sector to make sure you are really sort of always on the pulse when it comes to thinking about sort of tweaks, new features, new solutions? How do you go about engaging with the community, Al?
It's a multi-layered approach. On one level, we talk, personally, I'm chair of a number of multi-academy trusts. I work with the Regional Schools Commissioner. I'm involved in schools on a daily basis. But we also have many people within the organisation who are pedagogy based, who've got that teaching background and experience that bring those ideas in. But we foster very much the community, Mark. So whether it's the new magazine we've launched where we share resources across the community, and of course we learn from that at the same time, whether it's the online resources on NetSupport Radio, whether it's the event that you and I do on a monthly basis, the Check It Out show, where we highlight the best new technology and solutions available internationally. All of those sharing and supporting of the community come with a sideline, which is we actually learn, we get fresh ideas, we understand the narrative, we recognise the current challenges. So I think pulling all those together, going to trade shows and having other vendors on our stands, inviting people to come and embrace and share their best practice, they all feed into the kind of the narrative that we are, which is, at our heart is education.
One thing I wanted to mention, going back to the P word, Al, pedagogy. How does pedagogy and evidence-informed and evidence-related efficacy around edtech is huge, and it's really important both for schools to, like you say, get that return on their investment and know that it's going to have those impacts. What have NetSupport done as an organisation to reinforce and get outside kind of critique of the software at NetSupport to ensure that that pedagogical efficacy is still at the heart of what you're doing, alongside all the other things you've mentioned? Are there any other things that the business have done to try and reinforce that?
Absolutely, Mark. And I think one of the things that is very clear to me is you've got to practice what you preach. I'm always talking about evidence-based solutions and the way to go out and find the right solutions. So as a business, we went and looked, well, who are the people that are providing that best external evidence? And we went to Education Alliance Finland, presented our solutions and said, take it away, assess and review it against your framework of standards in Finland, put it in front of teachers that work as part of your entity, and you tell us where we're good, and just as importantly, where we're bad. And I was absolutely chuffed to bits that our new solution, Classroom Cloud, came out with a 94% rating, one of the highest that they've achieved, and very much recognised the work we'd put in to aligning it with the pedagogical standards, making sure that it's fit for purpose, meeting both learners and teachers' needs. And I think that's a really key one that I would encourage and embrace any vendor to go away and do.
So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Before we go, two quick things. Well, I want to first of all ask a question around a book you've written recently, because I found through writing books and sharing myself, it gives you real legitimacy and authenticity. So could you share a little bit about the book you've recently written? And then beyond that, where can people find out more about you? You talk about this sharing online and things that you're doing and resources and all this sort of stuff. Where can people find all of this stuff from you, Al?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Well, not surprising, on the Edtech Show, my book is called The Secret Edtech Diary, and it's very much focused around my learning journey of educational technology, reflecting on the past. But I think really that key is the last 18 months, the lessons learned, and how we take what we've learned and moved it forward. That's available on all good bookshops right now. In terms of the bigger picture, then I would really encourage everybody, please head over to netsupportsoftware.com. You'll find all of our portfolio of products. You'll also find loads of free resources, whether it's our e-safety guides, the digital strategy guide that you and I co-authored, Mark, and plenty of other resources that are there, along with our new magazine, Rise. If you want to connect on Twitter, then head over and connect to either NetSupport Group or @alkingsley_edu. But most importantly, keep the discussion, keep the narrative, and for the new Edtech Show, keep doing that amazing work. Really, really pleased with the format. Lovely.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Al. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll just quickly share my news before we round up for today. The Edtech Summit is back at the NEC in Birmingham on the 18th and 19th of November, following a really successful virtual summit last year. And the theme of it is bridging the gap between education and technology. And there will be something for everyone, whether you're a senior leader, a digital teaching and learning specialist, or even an infrastructure specialist. And we have a diverse range of speakers that we take in place, including Amy Hollier, Tony Shepherd, Ismail Dan, Yusuf Ibrahim, and myself. I'll be there hosting some of the panel discussions, get it right. But if you are interested in actually finding out more, then go on to Twitter and use the hashtag EdTech Summit 21, and you'll have full details. And there's still time to sign up and actually meet for the first time in face-to-face.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that news there, Bookie, as well. So thank you to everybody for joining us this evening for the EdTech Show, episode number 2. Just running through what we've learned and seen from this evening. Had a fantastic insight into how Pick a Tale can help raise literacy and reading levels within your school. Really enjoyed learning more about Pick a Tale. I'll definitely be following up and checking that out even more. Thank you very much for doing that, Bookie. Thanks to Ronan for that segment exploring the challenges and innovations in FE. Some fantastic insights shared in there. I feel like I learned so much, and certainly thinking about the EdTech Summit you mentioned a moment ago, I'm sure many people want to hear more from Amy and others at that event as well. And thank you to NetSupport, Classroom.Cloud, and Al Kingsley for sharing his insights there in that final segment there. So much great advice. I mean, I work with Al, as you both know, but I mean, every time I have a conversation with him, I learn something new. I feel like a sponge in his presence. So thank you so much to Al and NetSupport for supporting the show. And thank you too to Pick a Tale for working with us too. If you're interested in working with us as well, or would like to propose a topic for us to cover in one of our segments on the EdTech Show, then please do reach out to one of us on one of our Twitter handles or via global-edtech.com. We'd love to hear from you. But for now, until our episode next month, we'll see you then, but hopefully we'll actually see you a little bit sooner at the Global EdTech Future of EdTech Conference next Thursday and Friday on the 4th and 5th of November. If you're interested in finding out more about that, then please either visit the Global EdTech website or check out our LinkedIn page where you can find out and sign up to attend and join us completely for free next Thursday and Friday with insights from educators from right around the world. But for now, until our next episode, it's goodbye from me. I think it's goodbye from Bookie and Ollie as well.
Goodbye
from us as well.
Everyone.
Thanks so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Take care. Thanks. Bye.